Okay, so to finish off section 2.5, we're going to talk a little bit about interpreting graphs. Okay, so what we're going to look at first is pretty much just a summary of the different things that we have talked about so far in this chapter. Right, so when we're examining distributions, we use a two-step process. Our first step is to visualize our data. Our second step is to summarize the data. Right, and so as we're thinking about these and as we're looking at these, we talked about both numerical and categorical data. So I want to kind of just break things down, give us kind of a nice bulleted summary of the different things that we've talked about in this chapter. Right, so visualizing our data. Right, we're going to use a graph to summarize our data. Right, our graphs for numerical data, we talked about dot plots. We talked about stem and leaf plots. And we talked about histograms. Right, we talked about interpreting different information from them, how to create them, how to get useful information, their advantages and disadvantages, and we said clearly the one that we're going to use the most, that we've seen the most in examples since then, and we're going to continue to talk about this semester, are histograms. Okay. As far as categorical data goes, we talked about bar charts, and we talked about pie charts. All right, so our two different types of graph for our categorical data. Thinking about the way this chapter is set up, all of our graphs for numerical data, remember, we're in section 2.1, and then our graphs for our categorical data were in section 2.3. All right, then once we visualize the data, now we want to summarize the data, right? And then again, we did look at these separately for numerical and categorical data as well. Right, so looking at kind of, again, the way this chapter is broken down, our numerical data summaries was in section 2.2, right, and directly followed where we introduced our graphs. And our categorical data summaries were in the previous section, section 2.4, which occurred after we talked about those categorical data graphs. Right, our summaries for numerical data, what we want to look at, we want to look at shape. Right. Symmetry, is it skewed? What kind of modes do we have, or do we have any outliers? Center, is there a typical value? And spread, what is the variability? Right. Then for our categorical data, we talked about mode, and we talked about variability. Right. So if we were to summarize everything that we've seen so far in this chapter, this page here is an excellent summary of the types of graphs that we've looked at for each type of data, and what we are using for our summaries and what we are looking for in each of those sets of data.